Greetings, and welcome to Genre Grinder, your home away from home during the school year. I'm your host, Gabe, and with me today is returning guest Chloe Waryan of Chloe's Not Scared. Say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for letting me come back.
Thank you for coming back. The last time we talked, it was about anthology horror films, and today we're going to talk about something a little more niche in boarding school horror films. And before I go into my connection to this genre, what did you have any previous sort of affection for boarding school horror films before we agreed to do this?
Oh, absolutely. I think my affection for boarding school horror originated in childhood when I would read YA. I guess it wasn't called YA back then, but like
Right.
chapter books, middle grade books about
Mm-hmm.
kids that are in boarding school, and it's a great setting to place your protagonists, your young protagonists, because it removes the parental element, and then also the adults in the setting don't necessarily have your best interest in mind if
Mm-hmm.
you're identifying with these young characters. So I wanted to go to a boarding school so bad as a kid.
That's
But
great. That's
yeah.
great because I'm the total opposite. I never went to boarding school or even sleepaway camp. The closest I got is the Jewish community school summer camp had one sleepover night per summer break. So I did that like 3 times, and that was as close as I got to. The whole idea of it always terrified me. I think I just always thought schools alone were inherently scary. I went to a very ancient elementary school that was super creepy and had all sorts of things that would go wrong. Then everybody had all these rumors about ghosts in it, and I think that got to me. And then also for me, I've been afraid of being away from my parents for a long time, so that part wasn't going to be fun. And then I always saw boarding schools as a sort of part of religious school.
Mm,
And
mhm.
that was also something that scared me because even though I went to the JCC, we weren't religious growing up. I was aware of organized religion. I lived in Tucson, which had a lot of Catholics, and Catholicism to me was the place that parents would threaten to make me go along if we didn't behave during sleepovers, basically.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess I'll be clear. I was very naive. It sounds like you really thought it out as a kid, but
Well,
I was very naive. I did not. I would have been eaten alive if
yeah.
my parents had been able to afford boarding school for me. I was bullied as a kid, so yeah, it would have just been like that times 200. And I did not. The religious elements went right over my head. So
Yeah, I think that was because of movies that I
yeah.
connected those two. I don't know what movie put this on me, but it freaked me out. And all of the lore of Catholic horror also freaked me out, which is definitely going to come up in the second movie we talk about here.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, they're both institutions, so I can see how you conflated the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, Return to Oz. And I when we were picking films too, a peek behind the curtain perhaps, we both were looking through movies being like, is this a boarding school? Is
Hmm.
this a high school? Is this a college? Is this like an insane asylum?
Hmm.
It was hard to kind of pinpoint this setting.
Like if boarding school horror, I'm pretty ignorant as to what is involved, what makes a boarding school. I was just taking the boarding part very, very literally. And I was like thinking about it, and like, so one of my favorite movies is Suspiria, but I don't think I would consider that a boarding school movie because they're in college.
Hmm.
And I feel like there's something, and it has to be like elementary to high school. They have to be people who are still dependent on their parents.
Yeah, I think that yeah, I think that that's a good read. I found a lot of like sorority, like Black
Mm-hmm.
Christmas was kind of the
Yeah.
blueprint, and then a bunch of movies that were trying to copy that success, and then a bunch of movies that trying to copy the success of Carrie in the
Yeah.
70s. But neither of those I think fit. in
No,
boarding school.
that's a high school. That is a textbook college, sorority college horror and textbook high school horror. And
Hmm.
I think high school horror, if I was to define it, you would have to have it not being boarding school, because part of high school horror is the time outside of school and the home life and stuff.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, Carrie is absolutely, like you said, that is the template. It's not the first high school horror movie, but it is the one we'll see some of Suspiria, some of Carrie, and maybe a little of Black Christmas in the movies we're going to talk about. I think we're definitely seeing a lot of Carrie, though. I think any sort of
Hmm.
bullying horror movie that involves bullying ends up being either Carrie, or I guess Last House on the Left is a different kind of bullying, but
Hmm.
those are kind of the two.
Yeah. And the switch from like children are victims to children are the perpetrators,
Mm-hmm.
that was Carrie
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah, Carrie's one of those movies that, like, I wouldn't consider it an evil kid movie, but when you see lists on evil kid movies, it's almost always on there.
Hmm.
We actually talked about doing killer kids, evil kid movies before we,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting progression with the evil kids, and then we thought, oh, Poison for the Fairies though is so good. How can we work that in? And then it became boarding school horror. But then we realized Poison for the Fairies was a regular school.
Yeah, and it didn't fit. That happened a couple times.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get into it. You said Poison for Fairies. The first movie we're going to talk about, and we're going to do these in chronological order, is same director,
Hmm.
Carlos Enrique Taboada, and this is Even the Wind is Afraid. And the release date is unclear to me. It seems like it was either 1967 or 1968. I got both,
Yeah, I saw both as well.
so we're just going to say it was somewhere between 67 and 68, pre 70s. Spanish title is Hasta viento, tiene, miedo. So it's pretty much a literal translation. That's why it's sort of awkward phrasing, Even the Wind is Afraid. Broadly speaking, Mexican horror movies
Hmm.
historically fall into a few different categories. You have your mainstream sort of exploitation cinema, which covers the stereotypical like luchador horror movies and this series of gothic horror movies
Hmm.
that Christina and I actually covered some of those. We did a Lila Rona episode, and there's a lot of Lila Rona stories.
Nice.
And then you have your sort of subversive art housey horror movies, which mostly come up during the 70s. This is Satanical Pandemonium, Alucarda. This is Juan Lopez Moctezuma's Alucarda and Mansions of Madness. We covered Mansions of Madness on the Asylum horror episode. And then, of course, you got Alejandro Jodorowsky's basically oeuvre is this
Hmm.
sort of horror adjacent art house thing. And then you have this little blip during the 80s and early 90s where you get this sort of classy brand of horror, which isn't exactly family friendly. It was aimed at a broader audience rather than a horror audience. And this is sort of where Guillermo del Toro comes in. Even though he was shooting mostly in Spain, we're counting him as a Mexican filmmaker.
Hmm.
I am not anywhere near as knowledgeable about Mexican horror as I am like Italian and Spanish horror. But I've been under the impression that these Taboyada movies are like a big turning point, and especially Poison for Fairies or
Hmm.
Poison. Is it Poison for Fairies? There's a couple different
I've always called it Poison for the
the
Fairies,
fairies.
but you know,
It's sort of a turning point, international popularity of Mexican horror. But what I didn't realize because I wasn't that involved in the subject is that how long he had been making these movies, and especially this sort of gothic horror movies about adolescence. I didn't realize that had. I thought that was an early '80s thing. I didn't realize he had made his first one in the late '60s.
hmm.
I found this article that was linked to the Wikipedia entitled "Female Spectres: The Gothic Horror Films of Carlos Enrique Taboada." This is by Carrie Hegarty. This author, Hergity, refers to Even the Wind is Afraid as part of a gothic horror tetralogy that includes The Book of Stone, Blacker Than Night, and then ends with Poison for the Fairies. So that goes from, we got 60s into the 70s and then into the 80s. And she considers this the first modern horror Mexican film, which I guess if you're considering these luchador movies, maybe it's that you consider the luchador movies action movies, and then you consider the gothic movies an older thing. And so these are the first modern ones.
Yeah, I liked that article. It gave me a little bit of political context as
Mm-hmm.
well. There were a lot of youth protests going on in the bigger cities in Mexico City. And when I think about boarding school horror kind of broadly, or just boarding school fiction in general, there's a one of the tropes, and we'll get into like many of the tropes as we go along, but there's always like, well, not always, but oftentimes political unrest in the big cities. So
Mm-hmm.
people send their kids to the country, to boarding school, where they will be quote unquote safe. And then in these fantasy and horror fictions, the question is, or will they?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, why can't I think of the line, The Witch and the Wardrobe is that
Mm-hmm.
idea. It's World War II and you have to send the kids away and then they go on an adventure. All of those, like Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland stories, which kind of inform this genre, I think. They all have that sort of thing. Oh, good. The the super is now vacuuming. I should warn viewers: the super is vacuuming, and they are moving what sounds like large rocks and dropping them on top of larger rocks outside. So there might be some noises. Anyway, I found this one. I think the thing that, when she's calling it modern, one of the things that separates it from me, having watched a bunch of those gothic movies and luchador movies, is that it's much more elegantly filmed than those B movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's these moments here where if the actresses weren't speaking Spanish, you could actually mistake what you're seeing from a mid '60s live action Disney movie. One of the like A-list, the color quality, the costume quality, and the way the non-horror stuff is shot reminded me of those '60s. When Disney was trying to broaden outside of animation.
Yeah, I thought a lot of, well, Mario Bava kind
Yes.
of with the gothic tropes, women in nightgowns and the shadow, but also like so firmly in the 60s with the beehives and the
Mm-hmm.
eyeliner. But yeah, that opening shot of Claudia writhing in bed, having a nightmare, and the wind is blowing outside and the curtains are billowing. That is so beautifully shot. And that is actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and one of my favorite scenes Taboada has ever done, because it's just so quintessentially gothic to me.
This movie there was moments in this movie that reminded me of Suspiria in a way that I feel like part of me was like, oh, did Argento, was he aware of this movie? And then another part of me is thinking, well, it's just because you've seen Suspiria 700 times, so you're connecting everything. But Bava is a commonality between those,
Mm-hmm.
where Bava was Argento's hero, and I imagine that Bava's movies traveled well in Mexico. You hear Guillermo del Toro talk about Bava and Fulci and Argento a lot in his
Mm-hmm.
interviews, so I imagine that those movies traveled well. The opening sequence here is evocative of the woman hanging. Reminds me of like the beginning part or the end part of the woman hanging in Suspiria. You just add a bunch of extra violence and action to it. It's
Mm-hmm.
very similar to that set piece. I think the way the girls interact with each other, the sort of cliche situation that they're stuck in. The headmistress has a very heavy Joan Bennett vibe. Joan Bennett being the headmistress, or this, not the head. I don't know what her. She's the headmistress we see in Suspiria, and then the exploring the school grounds at night in hopes of uncovering some sort of occult mystery is also reminds me of Suspiria. But again, these are all elements of the genre, so I might be reading too much into it.
Well, it just shows how influential all of these filmmakers
Yeah.
were to each other. And before then, even like the fictional stories, the gothic and fiction, it influenced a lot.
Yeah. And the Hanged Woman is also very, very similar to images from Brava's Black Sabbath with the floating ghost.
Mhm.
The ghost herself is very reminiscent of the ghost child from Kill Baby Kill.
I thought that too. The
Yeah,
little peeking out the window.
which is one of Martin Scorsese's favorite ghosts. He talks about that ghost all the time in
It
his
is a
interview.
great ghost. It is a great movie. Oh, yeah.
There was part of me that was like, "Ah, oh, the building's pink, just like the school at in Suspiria." And then part of me was like, "Well, I know enough about Mexican culture to know that they just paint things pink. That's not an uncommon color for buildings to be." So that's when I realized I was maybe making connections that weren't there. I don't think Dario Argento painted the building pink. I think it was already pink. Anyway, thematically, I can see the Del Toro connections, especially The Devil's Backbone.
Yes.
This sort of hidden history behind the ghost and the danger the school poses, and the connection the ghost has to the teachers, the adults at the school.
Yeah, and we don't see them doing a lot of school activities besides
No.
like being one scene of them being in class and then dancing to
Yeah.
themselves. And you kind of get the political element, though in Del Toro's it's way more overt.
Yeah.
It's way more spelled out, but there are themes of like we have to keep these girls safe. We have to keep these students safe from the outside world. And then when the boyfriend shows up, it's like a turning point in the film.
The thing that surprised me here is that it doesn't sexualize the girls except for in one scene, and that scene kind of feels out of place. But
Hmm.
some of this is just 70s censorship standards. This is not a Spanish movie. It's not being made under a dictatorship that doesn't allow sexuality. But there's this sort of like there's a shower scene early on that there's a similar. I was comparing it also to The House That Screamed,
Hmm.
which is maybe we should have covered just because it's so great, but it's a much more popular movie, so I didn't really want to cover it.
I was
But that
going to try and watch it just to get in the mood, and I just ran out of time. But
yeah,
I've seen it before.
it's a wonderful movie, and that movie is all about the sex that, and it's this really fine line between sexualizing. These are actresses in their 20s, they're adult actresses, but actresses playing girls being sexualized, but it's more about their sexual awakening, I guess is the way I would put it. I don't know. This movie really is it's much more like I said, it reminds me of when it's not being a horror movie. It has a little bit of a Nancy Drew Babysitters Club quality, like this sort of like the I like what I knew as Nancy Drew is that Nancy, be in a gothic area and then the Babysitter Club, where the girls are mostly on the same side in this movie, which is not something that happens in many of these movies.
Yeah, it's like we have to band together and solve
Yeah,
this mystery.
yeah, they become a Scooby Gang,
Yeah.
and there is. It's funny because the girl who gets bullied is the snitch, and I found that very funny because instead of like bullying her in a standard way, they force her to dance, and it's a sort of uncomfortable scene because they just take it too far.
Hmm.
But it's kind of an interesting scene because it starts very silly, like Disney movie, where it's like, well, don't tell on us, we can all dance, it will be fun and cool, and then they just take it too far.
Hmm.
And that scene is interesting because it feels like it's out of another movie, but it also fits with what's happening. It's hard to describe it.
Yeah, it's there's like a straight up like strip tease
Yeah,
kind of in
just
this movie, which is what we're talking about. It really goes there. I'm not so much of a prude, but it did kind of scandalize me, and I think you hit the nail on the head that it just feels a little out of place. But then you're fully immersed, you're fully taken in, and then all of the sudden there's ghost at the window.
yeah.
And so that scare really does work, I think, because of this scene, because of the ridiculousness or the out of placeness
And there's a
of
lot
this.
of homoeroticism in these movies. And this one, there's definitely, during the strip scene, there is a homoerotic subtext that the girls are into this. But there's also the subtext of these are girls, and like, how far can she take this without getting into trouble? This is really exciting. Like, it's open to interpretation. I'm sure they didn't want to just say, hey, these girls might be gay for each other. That was probably inappropriate at the time. I should note that these actresses look like they're pushing 30. Like,
Yeah,
it's
they
not.
do.
It's not like we're not dealing with like this is the Beverly Hills 90210 version of teenagers. So it's not scandalous in that sense, but still.
Yeah, none of them look like teenagers. I definitely looked up, is this a high school or a college, like several times during the film. There is a scene too where they're kind of getting ready to go home, and then they get punished and have to stay over break, which is, another trope that we're going to see over and over. But it was kind of nice to see them out of uniform too. They all had a real personality. Some of these movies with larger casts, though, making the girls stay over break splits or decreases the number of characters. That's one of the methods to do that. But still, there are like 6 or 7 girls to keep track of. But they all had a very distinct personality.
I think the two ways you go is you either send a bunch of them away and then isolate your main characters, or you keep them all there but then just keep killing them off, which is more of like the college slasher way to go about it.
Well, we might see that later on in the 70s.
Yeah. There was a 2007 remake starring Martha Higareta, who's a Mexican actress who has modest American TV presence, and they changed it. I didn't
know there was a remake.
Yeah, and they changed it from a boarding school to an institution for suicidal teens, so it sounds very Nightmare on Elm Street 3 to me. It has terrible reviews though, so
maybe that's why
I don't think it was. This is on Tubi, and there's several versions of it on YouTube, and the remake is also on YouTube for free. The reason I recommend watching it on Tubi is that or on Canopy, Canopy or Hoopla, if you have access to those. We don't have that anymore here in Minnesota. But the reason I recommend watching the Tubi version, despite the commercials, is that it doesn't have AI-generated subtitles, and the AI-generated subtitles on the YouTube ones were pretty bad. And so I had to stop watching because I could not follow what was happening.
Sometimes for the Tubi ones, it didn't completely translate. There were a few sentences that went untranslated. But this is why I need more people to be really into Taboada's films, because the print on Tubi is just terrible.
It's awful.
And I need a Blu-ray of this.
Yeah.
So, for selfish reasons.
I remember a couple of his movies. I want to say Poison for the Fairies and one other one were on Shudder for a time. I don't think it was this one, though.
There's like a little Mexican Gothic box set of Poison for the Fairies, I think Book of Stone, and Rapina, which is not really horror. It's more of a action thriller. I have not seen that one. When I discover a director that I like, I really try to make, like, I don't watch all their filmography at once. I want to, have a few years and then do another one, especially directors who are not making movies anymore or who have sadly passed away. I need, I haven't seen all the Kubrick films, so
and that's a doable thing because he didn't make 7,000 movies.
And Taboada, he did the 4 kind of Gothic horror, so I've seen 3 of them. I have not seen Book of Stone, but I love what I see.
I just quickly, I was the actresses, the younger actresses had reasonably successful careers across the board. I think the standout is Norma Lazareno, who plays Kitty, the cool girl who does the striptease. She's just a personality that stands out amongst all the girls, to the point where I don't think she was intended to be a major character and just sort of became one, is the kind of feeling I get watching the movie. She was then also in The Book of Stone. And in 1969, she plays a luchadora in The Horrible Man Beast, La Horriblenta Bestia Humana. In and itself, that movie is pretty unremarkable. It's a luchador horror hybrid. It's kind of cool seeing this actress in her, skin tight luchador outfit beating people up. But the reason that movie is notable is because it was re-edited into a very early gore movie called Night of the Bloody Apes, which isn't any good, but is notable for being a video nasty because it has actual open heart surgery crammed in the middle of the movie. And so I think it's very funny. Like, I recognized her and I could not place her. That was a fun little realization. Otherwise, you have I couldn't tell if she was a principal or a headmistress. I swear the two subtitles and the Wikipedia named her different things, but the older woman, Marga Lopez, she's an Argentinian-born actress who was in a number of very famous Mexican films and was particularly famous for her telenovela roles. Oh, I forgot to say, Norma is still acting. She's on television. She's 86 years old, and she's still, she's so popular for a certain character she played, I guess, on telenovelas that she is just, has a gig for life.
Good for her. That's great.
Mary Cruz Oliver, who plays the kind of vice principal, she's Lucia. She could be considered I would see either her, she might be the lead of the film, I'm not sure, kind of shifts between her and Kitty and Claudia, who's played by Alicia Bonet, or Bonet. It shouldn't be Bonet because it's Spanish, so Bonet. She's another long-term Mexican cinema telenovela veteran. I think her role is the most demanding because she has to play it two ways. The thing we didn't say is that this becomes a possession movie in the last 30 minutes. So you have to have the whole thing. You're remaining this really nice, sweet character, but you have sort of this additional personality that's taking over your personality. If this was, I didn't see the remake, it exists, but if I remade this, I would make that the bulk of the movie. I would probably make the first hour of this movie the first 20 minutes of this movie and focus more on the way this girl is kind of becoming this other dead girl and taking on her personality. That's sort of that feels like the meat of the story, and it's sort of
and it happens at the end. The pacing felt a bit off in regards to that moment too, but again, I love horror. I watch horror all the time. That did kind of freak me out when she falls and quote unquote dies.
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh, she's dead. But no, she's just possessed.
Yeah, you're like, oh, is this a psycho thing where they're killing off the main character to do the stakes? But no, they're switching gears.
And maybe it's because it happened at the end, or happened near the end. I felt, oh, Claudia's going to die? Wow. Yeah. It surprised me both times I've seen it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all the notes I have on that. I think that if you're interested in boarding school horror movies, watch this one first. But if you're interested in the filmmaker, Poison for the Fairies is maybe the better place to start, just because it's a more complete movie, I would say. But I haven't seen the other ones, so I don't know.
Yeah, Blacker Than Night was probably my least favorite. But again, I watched it on Tubi. It was like a terrible print. Yeah. I will watch it again on Blu-ray, I promise. My last little notes for this. I listened to a podcast called Uy, Que Horror. And it's a Latinx movie podcast. And they did kind of a deep dive on the composer, and as well as Mari Cruz Olivier. So listen to that. They talk about them at the end. They kind of rehash the plot of the movie and then talk about them at the end. And then I'm not sure if you've read the fiction book Mexican Gothic by Silvio Moreno Garcia.
I have not.
It is a very popular book that came out during the pandemic, I believe, 2020, I think. And the main character is named Noemi Taboada after Carlos. So kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. This kind of thing that I think is going to, the big studios, not big studios, but the boutique studios are running out of Shaw Brothers movies. So there's got to be Mexican horror, it didn't get the same boost that spaghetti westerns and giallo and Spanish horror did on video on these boutique labels. So hopefully Mexican horror gets another boost.
Would love that. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure at this point it's just a rights issue and someone needs to figure it out.
It seems like it. Yeah.
All right. So moving on to something very different. 10 years later, 1978, Absolution. This is directed by Anthony Page. This was my choice. This is my pick. This is a 1978 movie that's not to be confused with the 2015 Steven Seagal movie or a million other movies called Absolution. There's actually a newish one also called that. It premiered in 1978. It didn't get a wide release until 81, and very strangely, it didn't get a U.S. release until 88. Which
Do you know why?
I don't know why, and it's funny. And when we talk about the cast, I'm gonna mention why that's really funny to me. But it just says on the things I read, just said rights issues.
Okay.
So we didn't tell the story on the last one, but I think we got into it. The story behind this one is there is a boys' school, very strict Catholic boys' school in England, and we follow a sort of overly strict, humorless priest who is dealing with, the reason why it doesn't work as a 1988 movie is this is totally about the sort of end of the hippie movement is the background idea going on here. It works. It doesn't even really work as a 1978 movie. This feels like a 1972 movie or a 1973 movie. Like it's about hippie culture being normalized enough that the Catholic priests aren't shocked by it, but they also just don't like it. I think is the best way to put it. The thing that interests me about it, and always has, is it explores the rules of priesthood and the sort of limits of belief.
Oh, yeah. I was on Catholic websites while watching this film.
Yeah. I should say I consider myself culturally Jewish, but my father was raised Catholic. So I have maybe the fear of Catholicism is because of him. The way he described being beaten up by nuns and stuff. Maybe that's where it all comes from for me. But this is generally remembered as a not good movie, and contemporary reviews really hated it.
Wow.
I watched it with zero expectations for review, and I was so enamored with it that it kind of became one of my movies. Like, I'll suggest people watch Godzilla versus Hedorah or City of the Living Dead. Movies that like I don't think they're going to watch outside of fandoms. Like, and this is one that I say, people should check this out. I understand why people don't like it. I know we can get into that, but there was a time where I was considering doing a sort of non-supernatural Catholic horror episode, sort of like, and it would be mostly murder mysteries, I guess, because I think of Lucio Fulci's Don't Torture a Duckling, which is all about, it's a giallo, but it's all about Catholic guilt and the way that, dogma ruins people, because Fulci was a very lapsed Catholic. And then Alfred Soll's Alice, Sweet Alice is another one where I think I've talked about that on the podcast several times, so I don't need to go into that too much. This movie is not that good, but it's interesting in that context. It also doesn't have a big body count or elaborate murder set pieces. There's not a proto slasher thing going on. It's a psycho thriller, and the horror relates less to the murder and more to the way the murder tests people's emotional states, I guess is the way to put it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad that you
Mm-hmm.
recommended this one. I liked it too. And our mutual friend Jim of Directors Club fame also liked it.
Okay.
So I get why people, I get why people don't like it, but it felt kind of made for me because there are one of my beloved comfort movies is The Watcher in the Woods,
Okay.
and the old one. And it has the same composer, which I clocked like
Oh,
immediately.
yeah, I
Uh,
didn't.
Stanley Myers. He also did Nicholas Roeg's The Witches and Paper
Mhm.
House and Deer Hunter. So, but I was like, Watcher in the Woods, this Disney movie no one has ever heard of.
I never realized that The Watcher in the Woods and the Paper House had the same composer.
Hmm.
That's so he has a very because it's a good score.
It's a good score. Yeah, he is I think he's one of my favorites. And then there's an actor too that was also in Watcher in the Woods, the actor who plays Stanfield, the main boy.
Yeah.
Plays young John Keller for all the Watcher fans out there. The character's name is John Keller in Watcher. The actor's name is Dominic Guard.
Dominic Guard, okay.
Yeah, he plays Stanfield. He was also in Picnic at Hanging Rock.
He is, I actually looked into this. He retired from acting, more or less. He still does stuff, but he became a psychotherapist for children and wrote multiple books on the subject. And I think that's really fascinating, given what this movie has to say about his character, in particular's adolescent psychology, and the way his character he's basically the teacher's pet and the cool kid, the jock, who's having a sort of crisis, not necessarily of faith as much as a crisis of, I guess it is count as a crisis of faith, but a crisis of morality, where he's just not sure this is for him. And he meets this drifter played by Billy Connolly. And that's crazy to me that Billy Connolly is in this, because if this premiered in 1988, that means Billy Connolly was just about to take over the lead role on the American sitcom Head of the Class.
Oh, wow.
But he would have been 10 years younger in this movie, so you would have been like, oh, the guy from Head of the Class. And then he would have been so young, and it just would have been weird. But the Head of Class was the first place I ever saw Billy Connolly. I think everybody in the British Isles knows Billy Connolly as a comedian, but this was his first role. And then the lead is played by names are just not coming to
Richard Burton.
Richard Burton. So okay, well let's go into to how Richard Burton got this.
Please.
This is written by Anthony Schaefer, who was an original novelist and playwright by trade, and he wrote Absolution as a stage play called Play with a Gypsy. And I can see this working as a stage play, though it never came to pass. One thing led to another. That might be why it didn't come into theaters in America until '88. There's something going on with the rights here. Schaefer wrote Frenzy, the Alfred Hitchcock movie, but more to the point here, he wrote two of my favorite movies, which is Joseph Mankiewicz's Sleuth, which is very much a stage play on screen, and Robin Hardy's The Wicker Man, which has similar things to say about religion. And apparently, while making The Wicker Man, this story was sort of in development, so it was kind of planned on being a vehicle for Christopher Lee in the beginning. I can't see Lee being this vulnerable.
Because you said Father Godard at the beginning is stern and unfunny and kind of assertive in his power, we'll say, but he also can be very subdued one-on-one. He's kind of sensitive, and we see that sensitivity be exploited throughout.
Yeah,
I can't see Christopher Lee doing that.
Yeah, Lee could do the parts where he's chiding students and being disappointed in people.
Yeah, but there's something festering under the surface.
Yeah, I
think Burton's portrayal.
I think that the thing is that Burton's character has to be an asshole who we sympathize with, and that's a very hard thing to do. I think Lee can be an asshole or a hero. I think he plays really good full-on heroes, and The Devil Rides Out is one of my favorite of his movies. But I can't think of a single movie where he does both of those things. Mm-hmm. He's kind of got one mode or the other, and so yeah, I don't see Lee dealing well with the sort of homosexual subtext of this one. Which this is not a progressive movie when it comes to its homosexual subtext. There's sort of a gay panic thing going on, but it is an interesting idea that Burton's character is perhaps he is perhaps a closeted gay man who has put himself in a situation that is not ideal for a closeted gay man to be in. But it's also, I don't think it's that literal. I think it's also a situation where he's supposed the real love here, the thing that ultimately leads to the shocking finale, is that he was not offering his love as a father figure. It was not about a romantic or sexual love. It was about him not being a good father figure to people who he is supposed to be a father figure to.
Mm-hmm.
And just like Wicker Man and Sleuth, this does, and I won't, because I don't think enough people have seen this, I don't want to spoil the ending of this one. I think when we talk about our next movie, I'm going to spoil all kinds of stuff just because I think people have seen it. But this has a twist ending that is similar to the Wicker Man's and Sleuth's twist ending. That very dark portends in what happens at the end, and it does end suddenly with like, here's the twist and here's the bad thing and the end. It's a kind of definitely Schaefer's thing he likes to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not spoil the twist. I won't spoil the twist. But this is so different from some of our movies. I mean, you get an all-girls school or an all-boys school, and there is going to be a gay subtext to it. But this is, I think, our only all-boys school that we are dealing with. And it deals with different themes than the others. It follows the teacher. That I think this is the only film that we're covering that kind of follows the teacher and puts us in the teacher's shoes.
Yeah.
And the for all of these, I noted what activities they're doing in this boarding school setting. And we see the boys doing tennis and track and field, but then we also see them doing theater, which makes so much sense. I did not know that this was a play first or written by a playwright, but I can see it now.
The whole that they're putting on a musical play and they're having to some of the characters are having to dress as girls. That idea to me, I think, is just, I see stuff like that in other movies, and as someone who didn't go to boarding school, didn't go to Catholic school, didn't go to any kind of school with these sort of high standards of discipline, to know that they did that, it always feels a little like a humiliation ritual to me. That,
well,
like,
it's going back to the roots of Shakespeare time. Yeah,
exactly. And it has a historical meaning behind it. And in this movie, the character who is the most important in the play is a character who wants to play the female part. He is reveling in it. And it is not because he is closeted, I don't think. I don't think there's any indication of that.
I don't think so either.
So that's the real, but the subtext, there's another scene where all the younger boys come out having to play girl parts and everybody hoots and hollers at them. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that, like, I was always afraid of getting attention. I went to art themed magnet schools growing up for fine art, but you also have the theater arts, and there would be lots of cases where I would have to have a little bit part like that in something, and I fucking hated it every time.
I went to a very theatery high school, and I went there because of the theater program, but I am a lifelong anxiety sufferer.
Yeah.
And I was not a good actor, singer, or a dancer, but I do love the theater. Just an aside. Usually I gravitate towards movies written by playwrights, and then I realize, oh, a playwright wrote this. No wonder I like it. So it fits.
Oh, Michael! I also have a note that Michael Caine was offered the role and turned it down. I could see him doing it, but he would be more of a slime ball than a malcontent.
Yeah, I read that this was filmed at Pinewood Studios, so I wonder if Lee was just hanging out there one day
and being
doing his late Hammer stuff. Though I don't know if he was doing Hammer stuff in the 70s, but
he was in the late 70s. He was not in the best place in his career, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, this did make me look up if clergy are mandatory reporters in Illinois.
Yeah. The idea, the basic idea that I think that Schaefer worked backwards from was that you can, if you do something under, what is it called, the covenant of what? I can't remember what you call it, but if you confess something to a priest, the idea that he is not allowed to report it under threat of damnation, I guess, and that there is a murder, and the murder is reported to him, and he's trying to figure out what to do about it. That's the sort of do not watch the trailer for this film, by the way. It is the give away every little goddamn thing in the film in 2 minutes. It is
Okay,
unbelievable.
I did not.
Yeah, it is unbelievable how much it gives away. Anyway, yeah. What were you saying?
In Illinois, clergy are mandatory reporters, but not in Minnesota.
So it's a state by state. So
It's
probably
state by state. Yes.
yeah, probably not in England in the 70s.
Yeah, probably not. No.
And then, well, the other thing I like about this movie, it kind of reminds me of the Browning version. It's like it this is barely a horror movie, I should mention, but that's definitely not a horror movie. But then there's also Lindsay Anderson movie If, which was kind of the movie that introduced Malcolm McDowell to everyone. That movie gets violent and weird enough that I would call it horror adjacent. And it also embodies one of the things that always freaked me out about this is that you can't escape your bullies. You can't just go home. You can't. You have to live with your bully in like the same dorm as you. And in the cases of both Absolution and If, you don't even have your own room. You have your own tent in a room. Basically, you have a piece of cloth is your only privacy. And that's nuts.
Yes, and that's what we'll talk about it in a few movies from now, but in our movie that we were debating, is it boarding school? Because I think one girl goes home.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I thought it wasn't is they all got their own rooms. That's not the case in other boarding schools, in most boarding schools, according to my filmic education.
Well, I mean, and in some of those, it's like, well, you have a roommate. Well, that makes sense. That's like the dorms in college. But like, yeah, there are these whole big rooms, and you just have like two bookcases and a piece of cloth that are all that it makes it your room. It's pretty. As an only child, it's pretty remarkable, I gotta say.
Yes.
There's another. This movie also kind of takes off from the Hitchcock movie I Confess, which has a priest finding himself in an ethical quandary because if he tells the police what he knows about a murder, he'll be like breaking the seal of confession. That's what it's called. He'll be breaking the seal of confession.
Is Patrick going to cover that on his Hitchcock series?
He will. And in fact, I think it's coming up pretty soon. I don't know when I'm going to get this live. He told me he had just watched Paradigm Case. So yeah, I think it's coming. He's in the 50s now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dial P for podcast.
Dial P for podcast.
That's what we are talking about.
Yeah, and then the only I trying to go a little bit faster here. Another reason this works for me is that it is a pretty common coming of age story, but it's the sort of horror adjacent murder mystery version of that. I think the non-thriller version would be about the jock character and the nerd character becoming friends. And in this movie, the jock character is doing his best to be nice to the nerd character, but the nerd character is he's played by Brian Glover. That's the actor who was in Kess. He is so obnoxious in a way that makes you hate yourself for hating him as you're watching the movie. You're like, I know that the whole point of what's going on here is everybody is neglecting this poor kid, and he only wants a friend but you're also like, God, he's annoying. He's and that's something that it's hard to do in a movie. You don't want to be offensive, but you also want people to like these characters. Like it's a fine line, and I think this movie does a really good job with the guy's really annoying, but also you feel bad for him.
Yeah, and he's disabled as well.
He is disabled as well.
I just read Popcorn Disabilities, a book on disabled characters in not horror movies, just in film in general.
Yeah.
So every time there's a disabled character, I'm like, I wonder if the actor is able-bodied, or if they're playing a disabled character, or if they have like a family member who is disabled, or is this a sensitive portrayal? I'm not one to say, but I like that book. It makes you think about these things a lot better.
I would say that this is actually a sort of sensitive portrayal, considering everything that happens in the movie. His disability is something that people sort of respect.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And it's not his entire
personality.
being.
No, it's really his sort of honestly, it's a sort of, he's more of like spectrum behavior where he's what's hyper focused on things and has to talk about it. Which that's the part that I feel like you would not do if you remade this movie, because you don't want to make a hyper focused behavior annoying in a modern movie. You don't want to make people feel bad for something like that. But in this movie, it's kind of important that you pity him, but also kind of hate him.
Yes. Yes. Watch the movie.
Yeah.
I'd recommend it. It's
All
on
right.
Hoopla for people who have Hoopla.
And I think the Blu-ray is still in print.
Okay.
It has zero. It just has a trailer on it. There's no extras, but which I was hoping. I was like, is there extras? Can I? No, there's not. Okay, well, yeah, so we got to keep moving here. So let's move on to next one is Phenomena, 1985. This is a Dario Argento movie, which means I'm going to have to censor myself so that the rest of the podcast isn't about Phenomena.
Yeah, this was my first Dario Argento movie, and I'm not a super duper Dario Argento fan, but I love this movie.
So this was released in America as Creepers on VHS, and it was the second Argento movie. So I actually saw Suspiria first because someone wanted me to see Suspiria, so I'm like, oh, I like this guy. Creepers is cut by 20 minutes, not for violence, just because the distributor wanted a shorter movie. So an already sort of nonsensical movie becomes absolutely nonsensical. I did not like this movie when it came out, and actually a lot of Argento, his biggest fans, his biggest critical fans, really didn't like this movie. It's kind of surprising looking back. It's one that definitely grew on me. I think another part of it is if you watch this movie in the early 90s like I did, it is mega dated. It is super 1985. That they use this mix of licensed heavy metal music and original synth dance themes, which are the Iron Maiden's "Flash of the Blade" was the song that got me into Iron Maiden. It's about sword fighting, not serial killers. At the time, I was like, why are they playing this heavy metal song when she's just looking for stuff? It's not an action scene. It's very weird, but it grows on you. And I think if you have a good 10 to 20 years separation from a very specific era, it stops feeling dated and starts feeling vintage, is the way I wanted to put it. And so this is a vintage movie, whereas in 1994 or 5, whenever I saw it, it felt like, what is this old garbage that doesn't feel like it feels like something we've left behind. And the theme song was very silly to me, but now it's one of my favorites, and I'm probably going to use it as the outro music for this episode.
Awesome. Yes, the music is so good, I think. And it really, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, it really showed me, what Argento, it's a great first Argento movie, I think.
Yeah.
It's different than his others, but for someone who is like maybe a little bit more squeamish, doesn't really do a lot of slashers, doesn't really do a lot of giallo, this is where to start. But it really gets you prepped for the Goblin score in his other movies.
Yeah, this is a Claudio Simonetti by himself, separate from Goblin, but you'll find this score when you have like Goblin retrospective albums, and when Simonetti's Goblin plays live, they always play it, a little suite from this movie. So I'm going to get through the backstory here as fast as I can. So Argento often cites Phenomenon as his favorite and most personal work. It follows Tenebrae, and Tenebrae was a major shift in his relationship with his own movies. That movie was made in frustration because he had made Suspiria. It was a big hit. He's like, I'm going to make supernatural horror movies now. He made Inferno. It was a difficult U.S. co-production with Fox. It was met with critical indifference, and it was a big box office disappointment. And he was so upset about the way that this was received that he immediately returned to giallo for Tenebrae. But he did it with this chip on his shoulder. So Tenebrae is this sort of metatextual, ironic satire of his own work, his fan base, his critics, and his own personal life. So it was like the Argento giallo to end all Argento giallos, but then it was a hit. So now he's in a situation where he's like, I have a hit. I can't take this my last giallo movie. I need to continue using some of these tropes that people like, but I also want to make more supernatural movies. So Phenomena ends up this really weird hybrid of some of his most famous giallo tropes, and then a whole bunch of weird supernatural stuff. And so the Argento mold is usually about an artistic type of protagonist. Like there's a writer, there's a puzzle maker, there's musicians. She's not an artist in this, but they witness a murder or attempted murder. Well, in a foreign country, she is in the foreign country. She's an American girl in Switzerland. She mounts an amateur investigation, and often they will have the help of a new friend, who is sometimes also a love interest. In this case, she befriends an elderly entomologist, played by Donald Pleasance, in his only Dario Argento role, and then finds herself put in danger because she's getting too close to the truth. So it is an Argento giallo, and there are people continuing to be murdered throughout this, and the murders are a mystery, and discovering the murderers, unlike most of his gialli, discovering the murderer's identity does not bring the story to an end. It's just sort of like the next step in this sort of chaotic, silly, fun time.
Yes, chaotic, silly, fun. Perfect way to describe.
Argento's thing throughout his movies is that he gets this. He sort of seems to be obsessed by scientific factoids he learns, and he laboriously builds murder mysteries around him. So Bird of the Crystal Plumage hinges on the plot point that he found out that it's difficult to keep a certain kind of bird in captivity. So hearing that bird call on a recording is the break in the case they need. A lot of the times the science is out of date. For instance, Cat o' Nine Tails is based on the debunked theory that people with XXY chromosomes are more likely to be psychopaths. Four Flies on Grey Velvet is hinging on this debunked idea that the final image you see as you die will be captured on your retina and can be retrieved posthumously. That's not a thing that happens, but that's very important. So this is maybe the most labored of all of those, where this is based on true verified science that insects can be used by law enforcement to establish the time of death and solve murders. So this is a real thing, but not a thing you base a 80s slasher type supernatural thriller on usually.
Yeah, I remember learning that from true crime podcasts.
Yeah, true crime podcast. What was that? Forensic Files was like that show that was always on TV during the 2000s. It was just constantly, if you were in a doctor's office, Forensic Files would be on. They talked about that kind of stuff. So during an interview with Alan Jones that's in the book Profondo Argento, the co-writer Franco Ferrini claims Argento randomly heard about crime-solving bugs on Italian radio, immediately ordered a book on the subject from a French entomologist, and proceeded to, quote, lock himself away until he had read every page because he was convinced the concept for his next film was somewhere between the covers. And then on top of that, he had seen Once Upon a Time in America and was determined to build his story around Jennifer Connelly, the future Oscar-winning actress who was 14 at the time. And
she looks 14.
And she looks 14.
Yeah.
And it's played 14. She is surprisingly not sexualized very much, especially given what Argento did with his own daughter in later movies. And then the fact that Suspiria originally aged up everybody because he was going to sexualize them a little bit. And he was actually uncomfortable with them actually being schoolgirls, and so made them college age. And then he also fell in love with these Swiss locations. He just thought that they were spooky and cool. So he's building a movie off of, like, how do you build a high school aged actress into a Swiss set that involves crime solving bugs? And the answer is you get phenomenon. That's how you team up a teenager with an entomologist, and they mount an amateur investigation on a serial killer. But I haven't even mentioned the fact that, and this is where I'm going to get into some spoilers, the killer is a mutated dwarf, and the entomologist is handicapped. He cannot walk, and he has a vindictive helper chimp that then comes later when he is killed, starts roaming the countryside or for revenge for the murder. And you would think that, I mean, this monkey will figure out, or this ape will figure out who the killer is, and that's how we'll have it revealed. No, you're meant to forget that fact, because at the last minute, the ape comes back out of nowhere and kills the killer when we're revealed who the killer is.
And I'm sure you know about Jennifer Connelly and the chimp.
Well, yeah, talk about Jennifer Connelly a tip. Let us.
Sure. So she was bit by this chimp, like I would say pretty early on in the filming. She revealed this in an interview on the Conan O'Brien show.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I do remember this, yeah.
And yeah, so the chimp's name was Tanga. The chimp had starred in other movies, and for some reason just like did not like Jennifer Connelly, bit off part of her finger. Don't worry, they reattached it. But then they did have to use a body double for the rest of the shooting because the chimp did not behave around Connelly. It's an interesting interview to watch. And it's interesting to watch this film with that in mind because, and spoilers are okay.
Yeah. Spoilers for this one are okay.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to solve the crime anyway, people. If you've never seen this movie, you're not going to get ahead of it. It's not going to happen. He does not play fair. It's just random things happen.
You watch it for the chimps and the bugs.
This is not Bird with the
Psychokinesis.
This isn't
like
Deep Red, where you have this intriguing mystery and he actually gives you some really good clues that you could figure it out if you're looking to. This is not that movie.
No, not at all. But Jennifer Connelly, whose character's name is Jennifer, has a very beautiful moment at the end where the chimp comes over and gives her a hug. And she speaks on that in the interview.
It says something about her as a young actress, that she could be scared out of her mind and still have this real warmth. And the scenes where she is definitely in the scene with the chimp,
yes, there's
definite warmth. The chimp seems to like Donald Pleasance a little more. I have a feeling it's a female chimp, and sometimes female animals just like men better, and sometimes the other way around. Sometimes they just aren't. They're gender angry. I don't know how to describe it, but it's not an uncommon thing where you'll have a dog that hates one gender.
Jennifer Connelly too, she has a lot of scenes where she is around bees and flies.
Yeah.
And other insects.
Oh yeah, that's the part I forgot to mention, that she can talk to bugs, and she has a very strong empathetic tie to bugs. And her and Donald Pleasance are such good actors that you buy this as a wonder and not a really weird thing.
Yeah, it's great. She's one of her first scenes with the bugs is like looking very pensively at a bumblebee, and yeah, you completely buy it. And to also be a 14-year-old not freaked out by bees or other insects, it really is a testament to her acting capabilities. And I like her character as well, again, Jennifer, because she's so self-assured. She's not the bully. She's not the troublemaker. She knows what she wants. She knows how to get it.
Yeah.
This might be due to her character's privilege. She is like the daughter of a famous American actor in the film, but I liked how strong of a young woman she was. And I think that's kind of throughout all of the boarding school horror, except Absolution, which takes place at an all-boys school. We didn't mention it for Even the Wind is Afraid. This is a movie that has very few male actors in it, or it's mostly all women. So I think that these boarding school horror movies, they really let the young women shine, which I appreciate.
I think that privilege is actually part of what makes this so, quote, personal. For like, people hear, it's my most personal film. People are like, the one where the girl talks to bugs. Do you talk to bugs, Dario Argento? But I think that's the idea. So Suspiria was co-written by Dario Nicolodi, and it was based off actual experiences at girls' schools. This is written by two men. who are writing girls, and her backstory of privilege is basically Argento's worldview, because he was the son of famous industry figures, and he raised his own kids in the industry, so he only knows having famous movie related relatives. And then you have to still see this character as an underdog, which in 90% of movies, the rich kid is not the underdog. It's not implied that the other kids are poor necessarily. It is a prestigious school, but she is the rich, famous kid.
Yes, she is the celebrity. Everyone's saying, "Oh, do you know who her dad is?"
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then she still gets bullied, and I feel like that if you remake this movie, she is at the school for disciplinary reasons. She is not a child of privilege who wants to go home because she wants to get back to her privileged lifestyle. She is a child who has disciplinary problems and has been put in a school for troubled youth, and she can talk to bugs, and she befriends an elderly man because she can't make friends at school, when there's no real good reason for her to not to make friends at school. And I feel like we're getting a glimpse into Dario Argento's soul. Why can't I make friends with people?
Well, it is a beautiful setting as well, and Giorgio Armani did the costumes.
Yep, they got Armani to do the costumes. The soundtrack wasn't just Claudio Simonetti. They got Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones did one song that's this sort of dreamy. It actually fits the movie a little bit better than some of the. Like I said, they play heavy metal music over scenes where nothing's really happening. It's very strange use of the music, where it's not like the scene is cut to this fast-paced metal song.
She's not like running or anything. She's just kind of walking, and the wind is blowing her hair.
And then again, I can't remember if if they reuse the Iron Maiden song or if that's the Motorhead song where she's just dialing a phone. Like, she is in a dangerous situation and she needs to dial this phone to get a hold of somebody, but she's also just dialing a phone, and the music's like, yeah, and it's just like it's a little funny.
I liked it. That's what I responded to, honestly. No, I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is something I've never seen before.
Exactly. And so when I first saw this, that not having seen that before, I was young enough that, I think teenagers have a thing where like, this isn't normal. I don't like this, but as you grow and mature, depending on who you are, if you grow and mature, you start to appreciate weird combinations of things in your media.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say this feels very like precursor to postmodernism, because it's all about like, well, I don't know how Armani was known in 1985, but it has all these brands and the celebrities, and she's the daughter of a celebrity. Yeah. And it's just kind of like pastiche all over the place.
I mean, Tenebrae is a very postmodern movie. So even if you don't count this one as outwardly postmodern, it is coming from a place of postmodernism, at the very least. And actually, Argento's oldest daughter is in this, Fiore. She is the girl who dies at the very beginning, the blonde.
Oh, okay.
That's his oldest daughter, who is not Dario Nicolodi's daughter. She's from a previous relationship. And of course, Fiore didn't really like being an actor. She was also in I think Fiore's in Demons, the first Demons. Yeah, she's in Demons. She didn't really like it, so Asia was sort of groomed to be the daughter/muse. Ended up being in Demons 2 and The Church almost around this time. So she was kind of working outside, and then she ends up being like in all her dad's movies, and it gets a little awkward because there's sexual assault scenes, and it's a little icky. But at the time, it was not. He was just putting his daughters in his movies. He was murdering one of them rather brutally. I guess she gets stabbed in the hand with scissors and then beheaded. So maybe it was disturbing. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit.
Well, and also, we've talked about Michele Soave before, and I think maybe on my podcast you mentioned that he's in some of Argento's movies, and he is in this one.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun.
He was also he was assistant director on this.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. He ended up doing he was on Terry Gilliam's Ventures of Baron Munchausen, And because he was on that, he and Argento had a bit of a breakup because Argento wanted him to be his guy. And he's like, well, I want to be a lead guy. And it's a whole thing. And then the other important Argentoism here is that Dario Nicolodi is in this as the school marm. I don't know what her job is.
Frau Bruckner.
Frau
Yeah.
Bruckner.
Yeah.
I don't know what her job is at the school, to tell you the truth. She's not the headmistress. She seems to be in charge of getting students settled, is the best thing I can say. I'm not really sure. But she becomes a sort of evil stepmother character.
The welcome committee. Yeah.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that is you can trace Dario and Daria's relationship through his movies. In Deep Red, which is the movie they met on, she's this plucky, sexy secondary lead. She then co-wrote Suspiria with him, which I mentioned. She plays this neurotic but still beautiful, delicate shut-in in Inferno. And she's this sort of chaste love interest in Tenebrae. And now their relationship's falling apart, and she plays a monstrous villain in Phenomena who meets a very graphic end and a very prolonged death.
Yes.
And then in Opera, she's not a villain, but she's kind of a money-hungry agent who kind of, in a way, if you're looking at it, kind of gets comeuppance because she's trying to push this girl to do too much. But she famously gets shot in the eye through a peephole in Opera. And at that point, she decides she did not want to work with her ex-partner anymore because
makes sense.
he was just putting her in more and more brutal situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not fun anymore.
No. She passed away a couple of years ago. She really is a great actress outside of her Argento work. Definitely look into her. Mario Bava's Shock. She's fantastic in that.
That's one I have not seen, so I'll have to.
She's the lead in that.
Take a look.
So my last thing here on this movie is something I found out kind of recently. Are you, Chloe, much of a gamer?
Not so much, no.
Yeah, I played as a little kid. Like I played Nintendo, and then I kind of fell off during the PlayStation era, and then I started playing again when I got older. And not even the graphics got better, but the controllers got better, I think is what it is for me. But I'm sort of interested in the history of these. I love watching YouTube video essays about the history of video games, especially the more obscure and the more horror related, the better. And so I'm watching this video, and I do apologize. I do not remember which video it was. I don't remember who did this, but I'm watching a video about this 1995 point-and-click game called Clock Tower. And I keep recognizing images from a phenomenon. The video I was watching did not know the connection. They didn't bring this up. But the main character is made to be an 8 or 16-bit version of Jennifer Connelly, wearing the same basic clothing she wears. Her name is Jennifer. The villain looks exactly like the killer mutant dwarf in this. And he brandishes giant scissors, noting that scissors are at the beginning of the movie, Fiore Argento is stabbed with scissors in the hand. And so I eventually looked into this and found out that the game's creator and director did truly base the characters on phenomena. And the Clock Tower wiki, if you're interested, has a whole page, the fan wiki has a whole page devoted to the similarities. There's a lot more than the ones I'm mentioning here.
Yeah, I looked up that a little bit too, but I didn't, I'm not a huge gamer, and I'm not a huge horror gamer.
I'm really not a point and click gamer, is I think the best way to describe it. So I'm never going to play this game, so that's why I was willing to watch playthroughs and stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, it still has a life out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's all I have for Phenomena. I'm cutting myself off.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. All right. So then we'll move on to 2003, The Wishing Stairs. I'm going to do everyone a favor and not try to say this in Korean. This is directed by Jae-yeon, who is rather surprisingly not a very prolific filmmaker. Every time I see some cool Korean horror movie, I find out that person went on to direct a whole bunch of stuff. But because there was this whole kind of bum rush of J horror and K horror in the 2000s, and a lot of people got their start doing that. Mm-hmm. But the only other movies he directed was in 2009, he did a movie called Yoga. And way down in 2023, he did a non-horror movie called The K-Pop Story that I can't really find any information on. I assumed he was like, oh, he's a second unit guy. He's a producer who had to direct. He's a writer. But no, he just worked on 3 movies. And they were separated by pretty large expanses of time. Just So for whatever reason, this guy just did not make it. I don't know if he wasn't interested. Maybe he's listening and he'll tell me. I don't think so. But you never know. And
yeah.
this is it's the 3rd part of a 6-part series of Korean-made ghost student movies. They're referred to as the Whispering Corridors series, which you have. The first film is Whispering Corridors. The second one is Memento Mori, which was the only other one I've seen. Because back when I first started reviewing DVDs, it was one of the first store quality discs. Like instead of just a check disc, they sent me the whole thing. It was pretty exciting. Then it was followed by this was the 3rd one, Wishing Stairs, and that was followed by 3 other ones: Voice, Blood Pledge, and Whispering Corridor 6, The Humming. I did not know those last 3 existed until I did research here. I thought this was a trilogy. And I remember
I've always heard it referred to as a trilogy. I've only seen Wishing Stairs, and I think it was on my radar because it shows up under like urban legend horror, and I am a sucker for that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wish I would have seen Whispering Corridors just to know how many connections there actually are. But from what I understand, having seen Memento Mori a long time ago, but I remember quite a bit of it, they're just related in that they're girls' school horror. That's really the relation there.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And we were having a discussion like, is this actually boarding school? In the end, it seems pretty clear that it is a boarding school, but it is a hybrid system. So at least one of our main characters goes home to sleep, where I guess our other 2 main characters sleep at the school.
And this is the movie where they have their own rooms.
Yes, they have their own rooms, nice. And they're pretty nice. Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, they're clearly they're sharing a bathroom. They don't have that they don't have it that nice, but they have nice rooms. It's kind of cool because the dorms are very European in their design, where the school itself reminds me of all of the Japanese movies and anime I've watched that take place at high school. The school itself is in that Japanese style.
This is the only movie that we're discussing that really utilizes the campus.
Yeah.
I guess even The Wind is Afraid does a little bit when they're studying, and then Armando, I think that's his name, comes the boyfriend sneaking on to the campus. But
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And the titular stairs are on the way to the dormitories.
The idea here is that there's an urban legend that when you count, what is it? There's 28 stairs, but sometimes there's a 29th stair, and you can make a wish.
Yes, you have to count as you walk up, and then if the 29th stair appears, you wish. And the spirit you wish to is a fox, which is a trickster spirit. Right, so it's never, it's like a monkey paw thing. So it's never going to be exactly what you wish for, but they do say, fox, please grant my wish.
And the monkey's paw is the perfect thing, because this is the monkey's paw where you get your wish, but there's a somewhat ironic twist to it. It revolves around ballet students, so there's a definite inescapable connection to Suspiria.
Yes.
But it is not a ballet school. It is an art high with a ballet program.
I was going to ask that. Are you psychic?
Yeah.
It's I've been tracking the extracurriculars everyone's doing, or the classes, and I thought, oh, is it a ballet academy? And I think I thought that because of Suspiria, so I'm letting my Suspiria knowledge kind of seep in now.
One of the main characters is a sculptor, and we see that she at first it looks like she's just doing it in like a crappy little clubhouse or something, but you realize, no, this is actually the sculpting class, and she just spends all her time there.
It's that creepy basement, right?
Yeah. Also, like Suspiria, and I think you were kind of mentioning, this is a movie that fails a reverse Bechdel test, or Bechdel test.
Bechdel. Yeah.
A reverse Bechdel test. There are not enough, none of the male characters speak with any of the other male characters about anything other than the female characters. just like Suspiria. And you know what? I don't know. Maybe even The Wind is Afraid. I can't remember if the groundskeeper speaks to one of the headmasters as a man, and they talk about the grounds. Or do they just talk about the girl who died? That one might also.
I can't remember.
That
I
one
don't
might.
think they do.
I didn't watch that with that in mind. But it might actually also fail a reverse test. Anyway, I just think that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of reminds me of Heavenly Creatures.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Because the basis of it, so really the two leads, there's sort of three leads, and I get into that. It's Jin Sung, who's played by Sung Ji Hyo, and Soo Hee, who's played by Park Han Byul. Again, sorry, I don't know Korean very. I'm bad enough with the Japanese pronunciations. I don't know the Korean ones, but there are these two girls who you get the feeling there is a romantic like there's it's the homoeroticism is more than subtext in this one.
Yes, yeah. This is I would say like a queer film.
But at the same time, it sort of reminds me of Heavenly Creatures, where it's one of those things that's like a real thing that happens with teenagers, where you will have these intense infatuations, often with same-sex friends, that is like somewhere beyond platonic or romantic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really Heavenly Creatures, which is a true story, is really about two girls, and the two women as adults claim that they weren't lesbians, and I'm inclined to sort of believe them, that it was just this relationship was so intense that they loved each other so much that it actually became toxic and a problem for. I don't remember what I was watching. There was a documentary on a school shooting that was that I watched that was also about these two boys, and they had all this footage about the boys had recorded themselves, and it's the same situation where they are so connected in such a bad way that it makes them violent, like towards others, and they're just this insular us versus them thing. So this movie has a little bit of that, but it doesn't go as far as Heavenly Creatures does. It's a little bit more romantic than Heavenly Creatures, I think.
Mm-hmm. The actresses in the first scene where they're in the ballet class and they're communicating with each other, but they're not talking. It is very intimate, and it sets up the movie perfectly to say these two characters are extremely close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they are romantically in love, but you could go either way. But it is something about teenagers that's a very interesting fact about teenagers that really plays well into horror movies. Mm-hmm. That it is sometimes not good to be such close best friends with somebody. It's sometimes bad.
Yeah, I think they're romantically in love as well, especially, are we doing spoilers for this one?
Yeah, well, okay. Because I think we have to. I think this is one we can't talk about without. I think Absolution's a movie you can talk about what's going on in the movie without saying specifically what's happening.
Well, there's a shower scene that's very queer coded, and then there is a time where she is literally trapped in a closet. So I feel like this is the most explicitly homoerotic of our boarding school movies.
And one of the interesting things about it is that it is not sexualized. I don't think that this movie, I don't think there's any, maybe I'm just not seeing it, but I don't think this movie is very male gazy at all, or
no
queer.
Not really. There are problems with other things.
Yeah.
But the body image issues of the early aughts, very triggering and disturbing. But yeah, it's not like two girls kissing for the male gaze.
Yeah, so the secondary, the tertiary lead is this awkward girl named Hee-ju. She's played by an actress named Joanne, and she's bullied about her weight, and she's also obsessed with Soo-hee, and she's the one who tells her about the wishing stare. I think that this character is unnecessary for the most part.
Yes.
I think the performance is fine. I think the director has asked her to be too much of a comedic foil.
Yeah, she's the stereotype of like a weird art kid.
Yeah.
She's very good at sculpting. She's very good at comics. That was cool to
Yeah.
see when she
She
makes the
she
comic. And
she
then
has her own comic about the wishing stare that's
which is
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I don't think she's super necessary to the plot.
But she is sort of, so she's in love with this character too. And what happens that's less like Heavenly Creatures and more like just every high school movie you see is that the girls are up for the same part at the ballet, and that comes between them, and there's an accident, and that sort of leads the one girl, the comedic foil girl, to going kind of crazy, and the lead girl to becoming an outcast because everybody assumes she dies through suicide. I guess it's an important indication. They have an accident on stairs. She breaks her leg. She can't dance anymore. She commits suicide. But they have this sort of extra movie where the quirky girl is stealing and collecting her things and making sort of a shrine to her, and then eventually gets sort of possessed by her. And it's not clear to me why you needed another character in there. Why couldn't our other main character be the one who obsesses because it's her, she sees it as her fault? Why do we need to separate? And then the bullying goes for both these characters, so I don't understand why we need to. It just feels like too many people are going on.
I wonder if it has to do with the ballet that it's kind of based on. They're
Oh, okay.
auditioning for a ballet named called Giselle, which I don't really
No,
know
I know
about.
nothing
So
about.
I'm just like reading the Wikipedia, and it's a ghost story of a a peasant girl named Giselle and a nobleman named Albrecht who fall in love, and then one of them dies and haunts the other, and there is, I think, a third. So I'm wondering if maybe it has to do with
Okay.
that. But yeah, and apparently it was based on a poem by
Okay.
Victor Hugo as well.
Okay.
So I, yeah, I'm unfamiliar with both the poem and the ballet, so I'm not sure. But yeah, it does. It was not a very necessary character, and she felt very out of place with her comedy, and it feels extremely dated
And mean.
watching it now.
And her first wish is to lose weight. And this feels like something, yes, this would be something you could put in a movie about wishing, but you would have to have more girls have bad wishes. You can't just have two bad wishes. I feel like you got a rule of threes thing here. You have to have at least three bad wishes. Um, but her twist, which again could be its own movie, is that she develops bulimia, which isn't like, is that saying that the wishing stairs don't work and that you only like did the wishing stairs cause her to start having bulimia? It's sort of, it's interesting. It's confusing, but it's interesting, the idea behind it.
Yeah, in a lot of urban legend horror, I'm often confounded and trying to figure out the rules. Like, when does the step appear? Does it appear when someone has like a very, very big wish in
Hmm.
their heart, or is it random? Or like one of the girls wishes for her to win the competition, and she does. Is this supernatural, or was she just filled with the confidence of having this wish and
Yeah.
truly believing that this wish will have her win the competition? And therefore, she's able to do her best job. She's able to practice, do her best, and wins naturally. It's you don't really know where the line is, which I think is fun. I think
Yeah.
it's good. It doesn't make it feel convoluted or anything like that. But I do agree that maybe a third wish should have been included.
It's also, now that I'm thinking about it, is the ghost slash possession part even related to the wish, or are they conflating the two and the wish is not a real thing, but there are ghosts?
That is possible.
Yeah, it's, or are there ghosts? Like, that's also not clear. Is the quirky girl just going insane? It's hard to tell. I have to admit that the version I watched, it was so over compressed that sometimes the faces got kind of mushy, and a lot of these characters are dressed similarly, and they all have black hair, and most of them are around the same size. So at the point in the movie where she's seeing her dead friend and this other girl's faces changing depending on what she's like that's supposed to be a spooky thing that's happening, as she's like, oh my god, she's possessed and now I'm seeing my dead friend's face in her face. It took me a while to figure out that was even happening, because the faces all kind of look like blobs at certain points. And
Yeah, I watched this on Hoopla, and that's when I learned that Hennepin County Library
doesn't
does
have
not
it.
have Hoopla anymore.
And
So
neither does Ramsey.
that
I would
sucks.
have to live in like, I think it was St. Cloud still has it.
Okay.
That's pretty far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess so. Well, the advantage here is that the movie keeps changing gears. So this is something that comes up in the next movie too. So you got a tragic teenage ghost story that's also the monkey's paw, that also is sort of single white female, and
Mhm.
then just sort of ends as The Ring.
Yeah.
It's and then it also has very much the school setting gives it that this is the most Carrie-ish of all of them. There's even a scene where the other girls arrange a celebration that is just a humiliation uh, trick. She's not like she has a cake thrown in her face. She's not covered in pig's blood, so it's not,
Yeah.
but it's sort of like a short version of the Carrie situation. It's also not the climax, so that's different.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing the other films in the series. I feel like some of them are more more explicitly queer.
Hmm.
Uh, they also sound so dark. There are some that are about. I think Memento Mori is explicitly about teen suicide
Yeah, yeah.
and the
I liked
haunting.
I liked that one more than this one. I didn't dislike this one, but I did like that one more.
Okay, and maybe I'll work my way backwards from the
Yeah,
first three. But yeah, I'm glad. I did not know about this trilogy
right.
until, well, I think I had heard about it, but I didn't put two and two together that we had picked a movie from this trilogy. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had to watch a lot of these movies in the early 2000s when I first was trying to review stuff, just because that was what was released. Is that early boutique companies, just got a hold of really big catalogs of Asian horror and put them out. There's the Tartan Asian Extreme was the big label that was putting all this stuff out, and they put out the whole trilogy. And so I got really sick of it because it's very formulaic. And uh,
well, yes, and they're doing tropes that have a formula. The monkey's paw, of
yeah,
course, and then and urban legends, I feel like, are formulaic, but sometimes I like that. And as we're seeing with the extreme success of Obsession
hmm,
at the time of recording, the monkey's paw is coming back with a
I
vengeance.
mean,
So
it's a pretty classic thing. I've I couldn't become obsessed with giallo and spaghetti western movies if I didn't learn to appreciate formulas and later in life.
the same with me and gothic horror.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
another one for me too. Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad part of me is glad I didn't watch the spec thing, because I think I wouldn't have liked it at all. And I
Yeah.
did like it. Like I should say I'm still in tune with the rhythm of the formula, because none of the jump scares got me, but a lot of them got Christine. We watched this one together,
Hmm.
so I feel like I'm still on vibe with this specific style of scare making.
Hmm.
The only other note I have is that there's part of me that was thinking this was going to be a Gollum situation, where the clay girl was going to put the spirit of the dead girl that she loved into one of her sculptures. But what it really is that they do a House of Wax situation where a murder victim is hidden inside a clay body.
I think that was probably one of the cooler
Yeah.
things in this movie. And then the other, I can't remember if they were a teacher or just a peer, but they come down to the basement and they say, "Oh, wow, she's so good at
Yeah,
sculpting."
it's a sculpting teacher, and he's kind of like a younger prick of a teacher, like high, like he gives them all a hard time constantly throughout. But I've definitely had teachers like him at art school. where they're like, I'm young, I'm only 10 years older than you. And so he reminded me of real people that I've known.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like this movie too, it doesn't do the things that we were talking about before. It's not, set when the school is closed and everyone has to stay back. It kind of plays on final exam anxieties,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some disappearances, which we talked about before, but I did not feel like there were too many characters. If anything, not enough.
Yeah, I think it should have. I think a better version of the same story will solidify the two girls as the main characters, but have more supporting characters. Is the way.
Yeah, and I think I said that the art girl, her story was a little unnecessary. I think I mean that. I think I mean that because the rule of threes does need to be applied here. I wish we had like one more backstory of one more girl at the school.
Yeah.
Just the way it is right now, I do feel like her story is not the main point, and I will admit I'm a little negative on it because of the way that her weight is talked about.
Yeah,
it was very upsetting to me. So
yeah, I mean, and part of that is just something they make girls really fucking mean, and
yeah. Then, I felt like the next movie that we were going to talk about was also really fucking mean.
Yeah, well, that's something that freaks me out, because I wasn't particularly bullied as a kid. I was not mega popular, but I always had enough popular friends that people wouldn't bully me, and I was also large, a big guy, so I didn't get bullied a lot. But I had saw really bad bullying and didn't do anything about it, and just was uncomfortable with it. So there's just something about it. But then when I got to high school, everybody was nice. Like like the whole I always feel like high school coming of age, stereotypical high school movies are kind of stuck in a different era, because in the mid 90s, when I was in high school, the cheerleaders were some of the nicest girls on campus. They were really sweet.
Yeah, I went to a school where like the popular kids were theater kids, and there weren't really any cliques, and everyone kind of got along.
Yeah, and
so
yeah, so it's always been one of those things. So I get really stressed out from really mean girls in movies. That it really stress more than mean boys for some reason. I think it's because movies make boys just fight, and then after they fight, they're buddies, which does actually kind of happen in the real world, I'll admit. But yeah, it's just more stressful. Yeah. So that's all I have on that one. Do you have any more on?
No.
All right, well, we'll move on to the last one, which is the one I have the least notes on, just because it's a new movie. This is The Sacrifice Game from 2023. This is directed by Jenn Wexler. I am not familiar with her other work.
So I heard about this movie from a great documentary that came out this year called 1,000 Women in Horror, which is on Shudder. I thought it was really, really great. She was interviewed in it. I love the Shudder documentaries that it's just kind of like a clip show of all of these movies that you don't really, you've never really heard of, or like your favorites, so
Queer for Fear. What was the queer one called? I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
And then there's the
In Search of the Darkness.
And then there was the one about there's Horror Noir, which my friend, my good personal friend Phil Nobile co-produced. He's not a good close personal friend, but he is a friend.
That's awesome. Yeah, Horror Noir is fantastic, and the folk horror one too.
Oh God, the folk horror one's so good, and that one, I mean, that one's long too. That was Kira Janice. Kira Janice. Also, and 1,000 Women in Horror is based on the Alexandra Heller Nichols book, and she's one of the main interviewees in it.
Yeah. It's a good one. I'm such a sucker for those. So.
I also saw Jenn Wexler. She's also in Tales of the Uncanny, which is a documentary I rewatched for our last podcast about anthology horror, because it's all about I can't remember now. I can't remember if it's about anthology horror or just about the Amicus. I think it's about anthology horror. It's just horror anthologies. It's not specifically.
Okay.
Amicus. Yeah,
I'm gonna put it on the list.
I don't. It might be on a Shudder. I think I watched it on a Shudder. I can't remember now though. Oh, cool. Kira Janice also co-produced that one. So.
Okay, so it's got to be good.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Well, going in chronological order, this one kind of throws a wrench in our scheme because it is our newer one. It's the one I have the least notes on as well, but it is a throwback movie. It's set
Yeah.
in the 70s, 1971, on Christmas.
So it's a little bit Christmas movie. Yeah, it's triple duty. It's a home invasion movie. It's a boarding school horror movie, and it's an occult. Actually, quadruple horror. It's a cult horror movie, and it's a Christmas horror movie. And
Yes.
it's also a bit of a Charles Manson family exploitation movie.
Satanic Panic, yes,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So it's a lot going on. It's a movie. The overwhelming my review of it is it does 5 things pretty well. I don't think it was a great movie, but I think that it is a case of doing enough things that you couldn't possibly be bored by it. And it looks really good. It's very well shot, especially for a lower budget production like this. Colorful, really bright, really rich. The retro thing is a texture, not a gimmick. Like,
Yeah.
you feel like you're in the era, but at the same time you're in this heightened version of it.
That's a good way to put it. It doesn't feel like a gimmick.
There's an opening sequence. It's this sort of long take steady cam of this group who's this very Manson family coded group who is killing people to collect. They're not tattoos. They're birthmarks, I guess, scars. They're collecting marks on people's skin because they are going to collect them, and they're going to do a ritual, and they're going to ask a demon for power, is what they think they're going to do. And so it opens with them killing a family in a really, really show-offy sequence that there's no other show-offy sequences in the rest of the movie, but it's a really good way to say, hey, look, this filmmaker knows what they're doing.
And to establish that it's going to be on Christmas. It's going to be kind of mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, the one thing stylistically I don't understand here is that I felt like there was some really weird scene transitions where it would fade to black and all the sound would go out for a second and then fade back in. It really felt like this was a TV movie without ad breaks. And
so I have a theory about that.
Okay, yeah.
My theory is that it's part of the texture. It's part of the 1970s.
Oh, okay. So it's supposed to. Okay.
It's supposed to feel like they're cuts for commercial breaks. It's supposed to feel like a TV movie.
Okay. No, I mean, given the way the opening credits are very early 70s style, that makes sense. I was trying very hard to figure out if this aired on some Canadian television show because it's mostly a Canadian production, but I guess it didn't.
When it happened the first time, I was like, where did this? What?
Yeah.
Like, I look at the Wikipedia. Yeah. I like the acting. Yeah. The guy who played Jude, the kind of like leader of the Satanic Panic cult, also played Aladdin in the live action Aladdin. So that's kind of funny. I know, like Disney stars playing just the most brutal
and it does, and it has the earliest part of the movie has a bit of a made for TV Disney vibe to it. It like feels like at a certain point it could have gone somewhere completely different at like maybe the first 10-15 minutes of the movie. Well, no, I cut out the killer part. The parts with just the girls where we're just getting to know the girls has a little bit of a TV Disney movie feel to it.
Yeah, they have to set up like, oh, so one girl is staying behind because her dad is like not a great dad, or she doesn't have a good family life at home, and then the other girl is staying behind. Why? Because she's also coded as kind of a stereotypical weird art girl.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is a very, very mean girl scene at the beginning that made me think, oh God, is this what this whole movie is going to be like? But all the other girls leave. It's really just these two, one teacher and the teacher's boyfriend, who I thought was a chef, but then they call him the security guard. So I guess he was just cooking for fun.
Maybe.
Is the idea. And so it's a pretty small cast. And then there's these 4 villainous characters. What I wrote is I said the performances are likable in a way that helps the fact that the characters are kind of thinly drawn and speak in platitudes. Very familiar. You could set your watch to the dialogue. When someone gives away their plan, the good guy's first reaction is to quietly say, "You're insane." It's very much you've heard all these lines before.
Yeah, and maybe that is also part of it, you know,
Yeah.
trying to play off of this like 70s apparently made for TV movie
Yeah.
kind of vibe. But there's a character that has a big twist, and I have to say, like, I was judging their acting a little bit, but then knowing the twist later on, it would make sense that maybe they weren't emoting in this particular scene,
Yeah.
trying not to give away stuff, but yeah, it becomes supernatural, we'll say. And it has some tropes that I enjoy, like the archives in the basement
Hmm.
and having to follow the rules in like one book of witchcraft. Uh, I I like that type of stuff, but it was very mean. It was hard to watch.
It it
It's
has the home invasion thing, and the thing that a really brutal home invasion movie isn't just about violence; it's also about humiliation and bullying.
the taunting and the
Yeah,
demeaning
and that's
aspects
and
were
that's
really hard.
yeah, and there is one sort of clever one here where they open Christmas gifts that are supposed to be for the like because this one girl wasn't even supposed to be there. This teacher has gone out of her way to find a gift for her, and it's really meaningful that she's done this. And these people ruin it by opening the gift in front of her and saying it's crap or making her put on the new dress in front of them and stuff like that. Christmas theming home invasion like that is something I hadn't seen before, and I feel like that was a very upsetting sequence in a I don't want to see more of that, but that was a cleverly upsetting sequence. In fact, I think up until that point I was up until they have people around a dinner table and are sort of teasing them and torturing them, not physically, there's not a lot of physical torture in this. Up until that point I was like, is this going to be like the Black Coat's daughter?
Yeah, it had a kind of a Black Coat's daughter
And
vibe.
they both have twists, but they maybe would make an interesting double feature. This is a much more colorful version of that story.
More violent, I think.
Much more violent, and but they're around. I can't remember when the Black Coat Star is supposed to take place, but I feel like it's the late '60s.
Yeah, that's what 1968 popped in my mind, but I
Yeah,
don't know if
so
that's true.
they're both around the. There's a couple moments where they mention the Vietnam War. There's one character who is a vet, which just makes it even more Manson family coded in a way. It's this is a mashup, and it's a mashup that moves quickly, and there like you said, there's one central performance that gets better as you realize what you're actually seeing. I think she actually is very good once we get to where we're
Yes,
going with her.
yes, I agree.
um
Yeah.
this one makes good use of the location. I wish they would have done even more. They explore it, like you said, they go into the archives and stuff, and that's something about Suspiria that I always like, is that there's this the exploration of the spooky school is part
Yeah.
of the formula.
Yeah. I mean, for your listeners who might not know, I'm a librarian,
Yeah.
so I'm always into the library scenes and archives and stuff. So, yeah. And I think, looking back at the 1970s, what was happening during this time, Ted Bundy as
Yep.
well was really influential on horror movies set in educational institutions. And also, there was a big fear of youth in power. And youth were protesting and having a say in things, and a lot of people did not like that. So it plays off of kind of what you were talking about in Absolution as well, this fear of maybe like hippie culture, but it does it in a pretty interesting way and pretty unique for a 2023 film.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to say if it takes place in '71, that's the year before Last House on the Left comes out, which might have been on purpose because, like, the idea that maybe they would be more cautious about home invasion stuff if there was a popular or a notorious movie in theaters about home invasion. I don't know.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I would like to see her other movie
Mm.
about I think it's called The Ranger.
Yeah.
Uh, it's about a punk who has to fight for her life. And I think it's the same actor that plays the teacher
Hmm.
in this, Chloe Levine.
Chloe, another Chloe.
Another Chloe.
The thing that makes me recommend this movie is that people are always looking for more Christmas themed horror movies, and I wouldn't put this one at the top of the list, but we've seen all the best ones, so this one's it's good. Yeah. It's good for the middle of the list.
Yeah, I think so too. I just want to say too, like I'm more of a character driven person. I usually watch movies for characters or for like a really cool concept. So this was an interesting exercise for me as a whole to like pay attention to the setting for once. And I think especially in this movie, setting it in the 1970s made me really hyper aware that this is like boarding school horror, capital B.
I don't remember which state it takes place in or if they even tell us, but it seems to be East Coast.
Yeah, like upper New York or something.
That's all I got. Do you got any other thoughts?
Very broadly, I think where the boarding school horror subgenre will go next, I think is going to take like a dark academia turn. Are you familiar with this?
Is that like dark academia? Is that like Midsummer? Would that be dark academia?
Maybe a little bit, yeah, because they're doing their dissertations or whatever. Yeah, I think it's like The Secret History, if you remember that book. That's kind of a dark academia. I think it's like for the people that grew up on Harry Potter, now they're reading books that are more adult, but maybe dealing with the same kind of setting. And it's hugely popular. It's wildly popular, and in fiction. So I could see the horror movie genre kind of adapting that. It's we call this audience emerging adults. It's for people who are like maybe 20 to 27. And so I think it's going to be like the next focus group for marketing.
Is that Gen Z then?
Yeah, because because of Obsession and Backrooms and the movies that are coming out at the time of recording, I think dark academia is probably going to be next. So.
I have a thing. Yeah, I like movies about academics that go to and they try to intellectualize something they don't understand, and something terrible happens. So that's Midsummer. Yeah. That's Cannibal Ferox, which is not a movie I would recommend people watch, but Cannibal Ferox is about academics going to prove that cannibals don't exist, and they go and then they get eaten by cannibals.
Yeah, I think I love that too. The M.R. James of it all. Candyman is like that.
Candyman is Candyman. Both Candymans actually, but yes, for sure. Candyman might be the best of those, but it's a fun little subgenre that I guess I could do an episode on someday. There's probably enough of them.
Academic horror, meddling where you don't belong.
Yeah. Oh, here you go. I got a list here. I got horror movies where naive scholars go to great lengths to intellectualize something that they don't understand with disastrous results. And I've got Cannibal Ferox, Mystics in Bali, Prince of Darkness, Candyman, and Midsummer.
Makes sense.
Yep. That's enough for a podcast right there. Those are very different movies too.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
All right. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. You can find me on social media at Chloe's Not Scared. You can visit my website, chloesnotscared.com, or my Substack, which is Chloe's Not Scared. I have a podcast called Not Scared, a horror movie podcast, where we talk about favorite horror movies. Gabe was on it talking about Zombie 2, which was really fun. And so definitely give that a listen if that is more your thing. It's more conversational than this show, more about the feelings we get while watching our favorite movies and why we like horror in general. So thank you. I appreciate being on Genre Grinder again.
And as always, you can find me on the Genre Grinder website, on the Genre Grinder Facebook page as Gabe Powers, one word, on both Blue Sky and Letterboxd. I'm still trying to raise money with the Genre Grinder Cares page, which can be accessed from the Genre Grinder homepage at the top of the page. And thanks to all the Patreon subscribers, who I keep forgetting to thank, especially. when I'm wrapping things up. My mind is just going towards I need to be done talking.
I get it.
And until next time, don't bully that girl that speaks to insects. Do you have any idea how many insects there are in this world? Goodbye.
Goodbye.